You versus the caveman. Who would win? Imagine you suddenly transported back 50,000 years. No phone, no shelter, no modern tools. Across from you stands a towering, muscle-bound caveman, eyes locked on yours. He's not just strong. He's a survivor in a world where every day is a battle for life. The question is, in a fight for survival, not just strength, who would win? You or him? Meet your opponent. What exactly is a caveman? When we picture a caveman, the image that flashes in our minds is usually some shaggy-haired, big-browed brute in animal skins, clutching a club. But the truth, caveman isn't one single species. It's a catch-all term for early humans who lived in the Stone Age. Anywhere from a few thousand to a few 100,000 years ago. Some were Neanderthals living in Ice Age Europe, stocky and powerful. Others were early Homo sapiens like us, but with lifestyles that demanded extreme toughness. Let's take Neanderthals for example. On average, they were shorter than modern humans, around 5'4" to 5'6" for males, but they were built like wrestlers. Wide shoulders, deep chests, and thick limbs packed with muscle. Imagine trying to arm wrestle someone whose forearms look like tree trunks and whose grip could probably crush a modern handshake into dust. They didn't live in the warm comfort of climate-controlled homes. Their world was brutal. Ice Age winds, unpredictable storms, and predators that would make a lion look like a hot cat. Survival meant constant movement, hunting large animals like mammoths, and defending against saber-toothed cats or packs of wolves. Now, put yourself in their world for a second. You wake up in a damp cave, the fire from last night reduced to glowing embers. Outside, snow is falling thick, and food is scarce. You have no fridge, no store, no Uber Eats. Your survival depends on immediate action. Either you track something to kill, or you become something else's meal. And here's the thing, this daily grind shaped their bodies and minds. Every calorie was earned through effort. Every movement trained their muscles. They didn't work out. Life was the workout. You and I. We might have gym memberships, but they had a lifetime membership to the harshest boot camp nature ever created. By the time you're standing face to face with a real caveman, you're not just looking at another human. You're looking at the result of tens of thousands of years of evolution optimized for survival, not comfort. The caveman's world. Before we can measure who might win, you or the caveman, we have to step into his world. Imagine Earth around 50,000 years ago. No cities, no countries, no written language. The continents looked familiar, but were carved by glaciers, forests, and untamed rivers. Every landscape was a challenge, every corner hiding a potential predator or rival tribe. A caveman's day began with urgency. The moment the sun cracked the horizon, life was already in motion. Not because of discipline or schedules, but because the world didn't wait. Water had to be fetched from streams or rivers, which might also be the drinking spot for something much bigger and hungrier than you. Food wasn't a guaranteed outcome, it was a mission. The social world was small but intense. Cavemen didn't live entirely alone. Most belonged to small bands of 20 to 50 people. A tight-knit group where every person's contribution mattered. If you were sick or injured, you became a liability. If you couldn't hunt, gather, or defend, your survival odds plummeted. The environment itself was a constant trainer. Crossing uneven terrain built balance and agility. Climbing trees to gather fruit strengthened arms and core. Hunting with spears honed coordination and endurance. Even the act of staying alive required problem-solving on the fly. Reading animal tracks, predicting weather from cloud patterns, spotting edible plants among poisonous ones. Now think about our lives today. You wake up, maybe check your phone, pour coffee, commute, or work from home. Your survival doesn't depend on whether you can sprint for a mile or lift your own body weight with one arm. The caveman didn't have the option of being out of shape. Fitness wasn't a choice, it was the default. This is why the world they lived in sculpted them into something more than just fit. They were specialists in their own survival ecosystem, honed to thrive in environments where most modern humans wouldn't last more than a few days without tools. When you step into their arena, you're not just competing with their strength, you're competing with a lifetime of survival conditioning that no gym routine can truly replicate. How you stack up. So now we've met the caveman, and we've walked a mile in his bare, calloused feet. Time to put him next to you. Not just in appearance, but in what you bring to the table. Physically, it's not a flattering comparison for the modern human. Even if you're athletic, your daily environment hasn't demanded the kind of raw, functional strength his life required. You might run 5 kilometers on a treadmill. He could track an animal for miles across rough terrain, barefoot, carrying a spear. You might lift weights at the gym. He lifted rocks, logs, carcasses, and children every day, without thinking twice. But you have an edge too, and it's not just intelligence. Modern humans, even without formal survival training, carry thousands of years of collective knowledge in our culture. You've seen documentaries. You know what a map looks like. You might recognize the symptoms of hypothermia or dehydration, even if you've never experienced them. A caveman's knowledge was deep but local. He mastered his environment, but only his environment. Drop him in yours, and he might be the one at a disadvantage. There's also the matter of mindset. You've grown up in a world where safety nets exist. Hospitals, police, food supply chains. The caveman's mind was wired for constant vigilance. He didn't have downtime in the same way we do. His stress was immediate and physical. Yours might be abstract and chronic. In a sudden life-or-death moment, his instincts would kick in instantly, while you might lose precious seconds, thinking, planning, or hesitating. In the end, this matchup isn't simply a contest between muscles and brains. It's about which set of advantages means more when stripped of all modern support systems. On the surface, he looks like the clear winner in his own era, but history tells us something important. Homo sapiens, our species, outlasted Neanderthals, and that fact might just give you the glimmer of hope you need as we move into the next chapter, the science of strength, muscle, bone, and power. If you've ever watched a strongman competition or seen an elite athlete in action, you might think you've witnessed peak human strength. But the truth is, even the best trained modern athletes are shaped by a very different reality than a caveman was. Neanderthals, for example, didn't just look strong. Their skeletons and muscles were fundamentally built for power. Studies of fossilized bones show that their limb bones were thicker and denser than ours, meaning they could handle massive forces without breaking. This wasn't because they were born superhuman. It was the direct result of a life where every movement was resistance training, hauling carcasses, climbing cliffs, throwing heavy spears. All of it naturally forged both muscle and bone. Their muscle distribution also gave them advantages in explosive force. They had wider pelvises and broader chests, giving them a stronger base for heavy lifting and close-range grappling. Imagine trying to wrestle someone whose entire body is a compact engine of torque and leverage. That's what you'd be dealing with. In contrast, modern humans tend to have more slender frames. Evolution didn't weaken us. It adapted us for endurance and efficiency. We're great at long-distance travel, at conserving energy, and at using tools to replace brute force. But this also means that, pound for pound, we likely can team-match a caveman's raw, lifting or striking power without years of specialized training. It's not just about muscle, it's about how those muscles worked with their bones. A Neanderthal's shorter limbs, relative to their torso, gave them better mechanical leverage in certain movements, meaning they could apply more force with less effort. Think of it like comparing a sledgehammer to a regular hammer. Same basic function, but one delivers way more impact. So, if the challenge was arm wrestling, lifting, or a barehanded brawl, you'd probably be in serious trouble. But, as we'll see later, strength alone doesn't guarantee victory, and that's where the rest of the science comes in. Endurance and energy raw power is impressive, but surviving a fight or a hunt is often more about who can last longer, not who can hit harder. And here's where the playing field between you and the caveman starts to shift. Neanderthals were built like sprinters, stocky, muscular, and optimized for short bursts of intense activity. Their bodies burn through energy quickly when exerting maximum force. That's perfect for ambushing prey or defending against predators, but it's not ideal for hours of continuous effort. Modern humans, on the other hand, evolved for endurance. Our species is one of the best long-distance runners in the animal kingdom. We sweat efficiently, allowing us to regulate body temperature over long periods, and our slimmer builds mean we use less energy to move over distance. This is why ancient Homo sapiens were capable of persistence hunting, literally chasing prey for hours until it collapsed from exhaustion. If you faced a caveman in a quick, brutal contest, say, a wrestling match or a short sprint to safety, his explosive strength would likely overwhelm you. But if the scenario stretched into hours of pursuit, evasion, or prolonged physical strain, your body's endurance systems could start tipping the balance in your favor. Another factor is energy storage. Cavemen's diets were high in protein and fat, drawn from hunted meat and foraged plants. They had to eat often to maintain muscle mass and energy output. Modern humans have a greater ability to store body fat, which, while not ideal for speed, can serve as an energy reserve in survival situations where food is scarce. This means that while the caveman might dominate in a short-term brawl, you might stand a better chance in a test of who can keep going the longest without collapsing. But endurance is only half the picture, because survival isn't just about moving your body, it's also about how well your body recovers from the punishment it takes. Recovery, resilience, and pain strength and endurance get all the attention. But in a real survival contest, the question isn't just how much you can do, it's how quickly you can get back up after you've been hurt, exhausted, or pushed past your limit. Cavemen had a huge advantage here. Their bodies weren't just strong, they were conditioned for damage. Living in a harsh environment meant frequent injuries, cuts from stone tools, bruises from falls, burns from fire, even broken bones from hunting accidents. And yet, they didn't have modern hospitals, antibiotics, or even painkillers. The result? Only the toughest individuals survived long enough to pass on their genes, creating a population with naturally higher pain tolerance and better healing responses than the average modern human. Their bones healed thicker and stronger after fractures. Their immune systems were hardened by constant exposure to pathogens from the environment. and because their lives demanded physical activity every single day, their bodies maintained muscle mass and mobility into older age far better than most of us do today. Modern humans, by contrast, are protected by medicine and comfort. That's great for living longer, but it means our natural resilience is lower. An ankle sprain for you might mean crutches and rest for weeks. For a caveman, it might mean pushing through pain because stopping could mean starvation. However, and this is important, resilience isn't only physical. You have mental resilience too, shaped by living in a fast-paced, information-heavy world. You can adapt to new problems faster, recall diverse solutions, and use technology to offset weaknesses. This mental flexibility could help you find creative ways to avoid injury or recover faster, even if your body isn't built to shrug off punishment like his. So, in the science of strength, the scoreboard isn't as lopsided as it might seem. The caveman dominates in power and physical recovery, but you hold your ground in endurance and adaptability. And when we move into the next chapter, brain versus brawn, you'll see just how much that mental edge could change the game. Brain versus brawn, the caveman's mind. We often imagine early humans as slow-witted brutes, grunting their way through life. But the truth is, the caveman's brain was a razor-sharp survival machine, just tuned for a very different kind of intelligence than yours. Neanderthals, for instance, actually had larger brains on average than modern humans. But brain size doesn't directly equal IQ. It's about how that brain was wired. Theirs was heavily adapted for spatial awareness, memory of landscapes, and rapid sensory processing. That meant they could instantly recognize animal tracks, recall safe water sources from months earlier, and react to a predator before it even broke cover. They were also master craftsmen in their own right. Stone tools might look primitive to us, but they required precision, planning, and skill to make. A single spear point could take hours of careful shaping, and a mistake meant starting over, a costly error when your life depends on that weapon. However, their intelligence was very domain-specific. Their problem-solving skills were rooted in direct, physical experiences, hunting strategies, fire-making, shelter construction. They didn't deal with abstract concepts like algebra or quantum physics. They didn't need to. Your intelligence, on the other hand, is broader. You've been trained, whether in school or through life experience, to think in patterns, predict outcomes, and adapt to entirely new situations. That kind of flexible intelligence might be your ace card. If you were suddenly dropped into the Ice Age, you might not know how to make a perfect spear right away, but you could experiment, innovate, and maybe even improve on their designs, using principles you've picked up from the modern world. So while the caveman's mind was laser-focused on surviving the immediate, yours is wired to imagine, plan, and prepare for things that haven't happened yet. In a one-on-one contest, that difference in mental approach could mean the gap between reacting to danger and preventing it entirely. Modern ingenuity in an ancient world. If you landed in the caveman's world, you wouldn't have his lifelong training in tracking animals or reading weather from the clouds. But you would carry something he didn't, a brain shaped by millennia of innovation. That means you could skip thousands of years of slow trial and error by drawing on knowledge you already have. For example, you know how fire works before you even strike a spark. You understand cause and effect on a level that allows you to imagine tools you've never even seen before. You might remember the principle of a bow and arrow from a movie or video game, or how to boil water to kill bacteria from a camping guide. The caveman had to learn these things the hard way, if at all. Then there's the problem-solving mindset. You're used to troubleshooting, fixing a stuck zipper, finding a workaround for a dead phone battery, improvising when a recipe ingredient is missing. These habits translate surprisingly well to survival. You might not be able to match his speed in hunting, but you could figure out ways to trap animals more efficiently, build shelters faster, or find safer food sources using strategies outside his usual toolkit. But here's the flip side. Your brain is also wired for comfort. You're used to convenience, so your threshold for discomfort is lower. Hunger, cold, and exhaustion would hit you harder at first. A caveman could shrug off a freezing night with minimal shelter, because his mind and body were conditioned to accept it as normal. You might waste energy dwelling on how miserable you are. Energy you can afford to lose. The real advantage, then, isn't just raw intelligence, it's adaptability. If you can push through the initial shock, your modern knowledge could begin to level the playing field. Over time, you might even start outperforming him in certain areas, not by outmuscling him, but by outthinking him. Mental showdowns in the wild. Let's put this into action. Imagine 3 survival scenarios, each a test of whether modern wit or ancient instinct wins the day. The hunt, you, and the caveman both need food. He knows how to stalk an animal, moving silently through brush, predicting its path, and striking at the perfect moment. You might lack his stealth and speed, but you could set a trap using simple engineering, digging a pit, building a snare, or luring the animal into a narrow pass. The caveman's method gets results fast, but yours works while you rest, conserving energy for the next challenge. The predator, a saber-toothed cat, spots you. The caveman's reaction is instant. Either fight with a spear or climb to safety. You might instead recall that large predators avoid fire and frantically build a barrier of burning sticks. He relies on reflex. You leverage knowledge. Both can work, but your approach might scare the predator off without risking injury. Shelter from the storm, the temperature drops fast. The caveman knows the best caves and tree formations in the area, years of memory guiding him to safety. You, without that local knowledge, might improvise using materials at hand, building an insulated lean-to or even layering leaves for warmth. He beats you on speed, but you could create something more weatherproof with a little creativity. What these examples show is simple. Your brain isn't better at everything, but it's better at adapting to anything. The caveman's intelligence was locked into a specific world. Yours can be applied across many worlds. That's why, in the long game of survival, mental flexibility may weigh just as heavily as brute force. With strength and intellect now on the table, the question shifts from who's stronger to who survives longer. And that's exactly what we'll tackle next, in the survival test. The survival test, the rules of the game. Let's set the stage. You and the caveman are dropped into the same environment. No modern weapons, no food stores, no GPS, just you, him, and whatever nature offers. The game, survive as long as possible. The location is a mixed landscape. Dense forests, open plains, a cold river cutting through the middle. Nights can drop below freezing, and storms roll in without warning. There's no friendly village to run to, no stash of supplies. The clock starts the moment your feet hit the ground. For the caveman, this is just another Tuesday. He knows how to read animal trails, sense danger from subtle changes in bird calls, and find edible plants by instinct. He won't hesitate, because hesitation is the enemy of survival. His body will switch into action before his brain has even formed a plan. You, on the other hand, have a different starting point. Your advantage isn't immediate action, it's deliberate planning. Within the first hour, you might scope out high ground, mentally map the terrain, and choose a base camp spot that balances water access with safety from predators. While he starts hunting immediately, you might focus on building shelter first, knowing that exposure could kill faster than hunger. This difference in priorities could define the entire contest. The caveman's approach is higher risk, higher reward, secure food quickly, but risk injury or exhaustion. Yours is slower, but potentially more sustainable. Secure safety, then hunt or forage. It's here that the real survival test begins. Not in who can throw a spear farther, but in whose strategy holds up when days stretch into weeks, and resources start to dwindle. And trust me, in the next part, when we put both of you through the hunt for food, things get very interesting. The hunt for food day 1 without food, you're just hungry. Day 3, you're lightheaded, moving slower, your focus slipping. By day 5, your body starts cannibalizing muscle for fuel, and every step costs more than it gives. In a survival test, food isn't just nutrition. It's fuel for every decision, every movement, every fight. The caveman approaches the hunt like second nature. He's scanning for fresh tracks. The split hoof of a deer, the paw print of a wild boar, the tiny scratches that mean a rabbit is nearby. His ears pick up movement before his eyes do. Once he locks on, he moves low and silent, closing the gap for a sudden, lethal throw of a spear. Your approach is different. You might not match his stealth, but you have patience and strategy. You could set multiple snares along a game trail, using natural funnels in the landscape, while he burns energy chasing a deer for hours. You're letting the environment do the work for you. But trade-off. Traps take time, and there's no guarantee anything will wander into them. Foraging is another arena where instincts clash. The caveman knows the seasonal plants in his area, which roots are edible, which berries are deadly. You might have book knowledge of survival foods, cattail roots, acorns, after leaching, wild onions, but in the wild, one wrong guess can be fatal. That hesitation could slow you down. While he's already chewing, here's the twist. The more days pass, the more each method shows its cracks. His high-energy hunting burns through calories faster. Your low-energy trapping risks coming up empty. In the long run, the winner of the food hunt might not be the one with the most skill, but the one who can adapt when their first plan stops working. And when the hunt is done, there's another danger lurking that can end the contest faster than hunger. The elements. That's exactly where we're headed next. Fighting the elements' hunger is brutal, but the environment can kill you faster than an empty stomach. Out here, nature, isn't, just a backdrop. It's the most relentless opponent you'll face. The caveman treats the cold like an old enemy. He knows how to choose a cave that blocks the wind, how to pile animal hides for insulation, and how to feed a fire so it lasts through the night. He doesn't waste time overthinking, he just does, because he's done it every season of his life. You approach it differently. Your brain starts scanning for options. A lean-to against a fallen tree, an A-frame of branches packed with leaves for insulation, maybe even digging into the ground to escape the wind chill. You remember lessons from survival shows or camping trips, and you improvise. You might not match his speed in building, but you could build something more efficient in retaining heat, especially if you remember to block the ground cold with bedding. When it's rain instead of cold, the gap narrows even more. Cavemen relied on caves, but caves aren't always nearby. You might be quicker to spot overhangs or natural drainage patterns to avoid waking up in a puddle. Your ability to plan ahead, even just by reading the sky, could save you from a miserable, hypothermic night. But there's one factor neither of you can fully control: weather extremes. A sudden snowstorm, a flash flood, a week of constant rain, these can strip away energy, morale, and resources faster than any predator. And in those moments, it's not the strongest who survives. It's the one who can keep going despite being wet, cold, tired, and hungry. By the end of this test, both of you have scars, sore muscles, and dwindling energy. But you've also both proven something important. Survival isn't about a single skill. It's about juggling all of them under pressure. Next, we put it all together, in the end, the final showdown, where the contest comes to its ultimate conclusion. The final showdown, day 1. The air is crisp, the ground damp from last night's rain. Dawn creeps across the horizon, and the game begins. No more theory. Now it's survival in real time. The caveman doesn't waste a moment. Within minutes, he's moving into the trees, eyes sweeping for game trails and fresh water. His movements are low, deliberate, and silent. He's not thinking in hours. He's thinking in immediate needs. Food, water, shelter. Every second without progress is a second closer to death. You start differently. Instead of charging off, you take 10 minutes to climb a low ridge, mapping the land in your mind. You spot a narrow bend in the river, a patch of tall grass that might hide game, and a rocky overhang that could serve as a temporary shelter. You mentally tag each location, planning your route. By midday, the contrast in strategies is clear. The caveman has caught a small rabbit food for now, but barely enough for a day's energy. He's burning calories fast with his active hunt. You haven't eaten, but you've built a passable shelter and set 3 snares along a game path near the river. You're betting on conserving energy and letting time work for you. Night 1 tells its own story. The caveman's fire crackles in the distance. His stomach is full, his body warm. You've got a smaller fire, a growling stomach, but a better protected shelter. Both approaches feel like wins. For now, but in survival, day 1 is the easy day. As the sun rises on day 2, the stakes rise with it, because the forest isn't empty, and neither of you is the only predator here. The turning point on the morning of day 2, the balance begins to shift. The caveman wakes before sunrise, moving through the mist like a shadow. His rabbit from yesterday is gone, burned away as fuel for his muscular frame. He needs more meat, and fast. His instincts drive him toward the plains where deer sometimes graze. But that means exposure, far from shelter, and a high-energy chase. You wake to the sound of movement near the river. Checking your snares, you find one has snapped, empty, but another holds a struggling pheasant. It's not a feast, but it's food without burning through your reserves. You dispatch it quickly, clean it by the water, and return to camp. But midday brings trouble. A storm rolls in, thick clouds swallowing the sky. The wind cuts like knives, and rain lashes sideways. The caveman has no time to return to his cave. He shelters under a boulder overhang, but his fire is impossible to keep lit. You, already near your lean-to, brace it with extra branches and pile leaves for insulation. Your small fire, shielded from the wind, survives. That night, the caveman shivers, burning calories to stay warm. You're not exactly comfortable, but you're dry and conserving heat. By dawn, the difference shows. His movements are slower, his eyes less sharp. Your endurance advantage, invisible in the beginning, is starting to matter. Still, survival isn't won on a single good night. The caveman's experience could still swing things his way, especially if the forest throws danger in your path. And as day 3 begins, danger is exactly what you both get. The last stand, day 3 dawns, heavy with fog. The forest is quiet, too quiet. Somewhere in the mist, a predator moves. It strikes in the afternoon. A wild boar, massive and furious, bursts from the undergrowth. The caveman reacts instantly, spear in hand, charging forward with a roar. His strike is powerful, but glances off the boar's shoulder. The animal wheels around, tusks slicing the air. He's in the fight of his life, all muscle and instinct against raw animal fury. You're 30 paces away when it happens. Your instinct isn't to charge, it's to think. You spot a fallen log forming a narrow gap between 2 trees. You shout, drawing the boar's attention, and retreat toward the gap. The animal follows, funneled into the trap. At the last second, you dive aside. The boar slams into the log, momentarily stuck, thrashing. The caveman seizes the chance and drives his spear deep. It's over. But neither of you won alone. His strength and speed delivered the killing blow, but your strategy created the opening. Together, you bring down enough meat to last days. When the dust settles, the winner is hard to name. In the short game, the caveman's power is unmatched. He can fight, hunt, and endure blows you'd never survive. But in the long game, your endurance, planning, and adaptability turn the tide. If this were a contest to the death, it might end in a draw. But in a contest to survive, it's the combination of both skill sets that truly wins. Alone, each of you has limits. Together, you're nearly unstoppable. So, who really wins? You, or the caveman? If the fight is quick, brutal, and decided in minutes, The caveman's raw strength, combat instinct, and pain tolerance make him the favorite. But if survival stretches into days or weeks, your endurance, adaptability, and modern problem-solving start tipping the balance. What this showdown really proves is that survival isn't about muscles or brains. It's about how they work together. The caveman thrived in a world where instinct ruled. You thrive in a world of planning, strategy, and innovation. Neither is better in every situation, but each is perfectly shaped for its own world. And maybe that's the real answer. In the arena of life, evolution doesn't crown a single champion. It creates different winners for different games. Now I want to hear from you. If you woke up tomorrow in the Stone Age, what's the first thing you'd do? Hunt, build shelter, or try to befriend the caveman before he decides your dinner? Drop your strategy in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into survival, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so we can explore more what-if battles from history. Until next time, stay curious and stay alive.